uh, at the church I was attending, which was a very large church, they were trying to get a security team off the ground. And it could never happen, although they had a lot of police officers and firefighters there and nurses and doctors. They just couldn't put it together. So I suggested to the senior pastor, because I had been volunteering along with 3 other people. There were like 4 of us on a team. And this church had over 500 people attending. So I said the best way to get something started is let's have a barbecue on a Saturday. Everybody's invited. And then we'll ask people who would be interested in joining a safety team. That safety team would be broken up, and I don't call it security, I call it safety. Now I've worked with, since I've met with you, I've worked with 6 churches now. And interesting enough, I've always said it's not just security, it's safety. And the reason why it's safety is I want to have medical people as part of the team. And I have found with training churches, there has been more call for medical people than there has been for security people. Especially if a church has senior citizens there because they have strokes, they either don't take their medicine, or if you have people that are diabetic, you know what happens with somebody who is diabetic. They can have many reasons why they have a fallout. And so just recognizing those signs is important. And if you have somebody on a medical team, you immediately can take care of it. Anytime you call emergency services, depending on where they're located, now I know the fire department's not far from here because I passed it. It takes anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And remember, just because you have a fire department close by or a police department doesn't mean that they're not out on another call. And if they're out on another call, they have to call another fire department to go ahead and handle the call. It can be 15, 20 minutes before you get here. So having somebody with medical experience is really important. If you don't have somebody like that, it would be good, Ed, to suggest that anytime you have CPR training or first aid training, and sometimes you can get a hold of the Red Cross and get them to come and do a training and certify somebody or several people, because you always want to have somebody on the medical team, okay? So I don't know what you've done since the last time I was here a year ago. Ed said you added some technical stuff around the church, and that's wonderful. Anytime you can add cameras, anytime you can hand extra lighting, that's all important to keep your church safe. But let me tell you about cameras. I like cameras. Presently, I'm one of the campus police officers at the seminary, Southern Theological Seminary. They're off of Lexington, so I'm one of the officers there. There's 14 of us. All of us are retired from police departments, and I'm the only one from California. But at any rate, anytime you have a number of officers there, we all have to go through certified training in first aid. And we get students many times that they come into the university or the seminary, and they've got some problems. And they don't always, you know, in the law, the way the law is now, it's against the law for you to know what problems other people have. Unless they share it with you, you cannot ask them. So they come in and they don't tell us anything, and next thing you know is we get a call that somebody's choking and, you know, in one of the dorms, and so we get there and we have no idea what's going on other than the fact that they're down and out. So we have to start asking questions. Are you on medication? What kind of medication are you on? Sometimes they can't talk, so we have to look for medication. In a church setting, it's a little easier to be able to identify whether or not somebody is ill, because they usually have friends. But if somebody comes and they don't have anybody with them and they fall out, the best thing I can recommend is call 911 immediately. Don't try to guess what's going on with them. So I just want to bring up the medical part of that, because it's really important in church to have somebody who can respond to a medical need, okay? Because you can go for a long time and not have any problems with security, but you can have problems with medical, okay? So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront. I was just reading while I was waiting to get started. We have gone through our manual and changed some things in our manual. And have you had a chance to adapt the manual to this setting?
Some information.
Okay. That's one size does not fit all. So it's interesting. My daughter lives in Indiana, real far north, Monticello, Indiana. I don't know if you know where Monticello is, but it's on the other side of, it's pretty far north. Trying to think, Lafayette is the closest city to it. So I was supposed to do a training next month there, and then the elders met. My son is an associate pastor there. We were on board with that, and the elders met and decided, no, we don't want to face the liability of starting a safety team because we could get sued. So I said to my son-in-law, so what do you have for security? Because I'm concerned because of my 5 grandkids that go there and my daughter, and of course my son-in-law. I said, so what do you have? They said, well, the elder said it's okay because we have people that are armed that go to our church. So I said to my daughter, so you're relying upon people that are carrying guns that have no training at all, and if something bad happens, you're going to expect them to respond? And as silly as it is, the church that I came from 6 years ago, I had the same discussion with one of the elders who was a lawyer who said, yeah, we're just going to rely upon people there. And I said, well, now that I have informed you about how dangerous that is, if something ever happens now, the ball is in your court. Because if something happens there and somebody asks me, why didn't we have trained people there? I'm going to say, talk to this elder, because he was the one that didn't want to start one. Well, now he's on the team along with several other people. So our team has about, it fluctuates from Sunday to Sunday, and especially during the summer, because people go on vacation, July, August. But we have about 14 people on our team. Sometimes we'll have 7 people working, and sometimes we will have 4 people working. And it just depends. But it's good to have a number of people on your team so that you always have, for this size of church, I would think you need to have at least a minimum of 3 people on the safety team. One of those being a medical person, okay? So at least a minimum of 3. I say that in the churches the size of ours on evening service, sometimes it's just me and another person, okay? So you just do with what you have. And you're always praying that nothing's going to happen. In this day and age, who would have thought that an employee would all of a sudden go off and start shooting up a bank? Okay? So violence can happen anywhere. And I think the sad thing that we've noticed in law enforcement is these things that are happening are people that have knowledge of the inner workings of the bank. Remember the young lady or young man? Don't remember what. Anyway, the individual that came in and shot up the school, remember that? Well, this individual had at one time been at that school and knew individuals in there and knew who they were going to shoot. And this person, if you look at the video, they shot through the front doors, which were glass, and that's how this person gained entry. Many of the schools, history has told us that many of the schools at one time all had SROs. Those are school resource officers, where they had an officer assigned to the school. As soon as the budget started going up, they took those officers, put them back in patrol. And so now they're reversing it and saying, oh, we got to bring the police back in the schools because of the response time. So you're looking at response time as really important. I talked about medical response, I'm talking about security response. If you are already trained here and can stop the attacker, now, I've got to underline this, and I've done this with our team when I've trained. I've said, when people are always coming and wanting to join the team, I always ask them, are you willing, if you had to take somebody's life? Because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about neutralizing somebody who is trying to commit disaster in your church. If somebody was trying to break into your home and they're coming through the front door and they're armed, what are you going to do? If you have a back door, you can get out. If you don't have a back door, then you're stuck. So you have to make a decision. In the church, if somebody starts shooting up the church, it's not going to take you very long to realize either you're going to run or you're going to take some kind of, right? Some type of decision to stop whatever is happening, okay? Now you have exits back here, okay? I know you have an exit back here. So the best thing, of course, is whoever's working the nursery, the security person should immediately go to the nursery. You have one of the security people go to the nursery, get all of the workers out, and evacuate the children right away. So the first thing you want to do. We have exits that we have talked about at our church, and it's important to recognize the exits. My wife, Sarah, just came in, so if you see that lady back there, she's here. She wanted to make sure I was doing a training. So you need to recognize that children are very vulnerable. Now, in everything I have read in security training, and I understand, is when you talk about churches and church security, you will see many times the articles talk about wolves. Do I need to tell you what a wolf is? Okay. We who know the Word of God know what a sheep is. We are the sheep, okay? So you've got wolves, you've got sheep, and then you have sheepdogs. The sheepdogs are the ones that protect the flock, okay? Now, the worst thing that could ever happen is that you have a pastor, and I know that in some places you do have pastors that carry guns, okay, to protect the sheep. The problem is that if he is ever involved in a shooting, guess what the media is going to do with that? Guess what's going to happen to your church after that with all of the media, all of that? Guess what about his reputation? So you don't want the pastor involved. You want to be able to be the sheepdog that protects the entire church, okay? So if you're on the safety team, you have to make sure that you recognize a threat. That is very important, okay? And last time I was here, we talked about where do we sit. Remember that? And today we're going to kind of practice that, and you're going to be able to see what happens, okay? So when we talk about where you sit, we have these felts. We used to just have a sign that said reserve safety team so that people wouldn't sit on them. They sit on them anyway. People come in and sit on them. Sometimes I have to go up and say, excuse me, are you new? I know they're not because I'm in charge of the safety. I'm sorry, are you new to the safety team? No. I go, well, you're sitting in the safety team. If you're on the safety team, you should always pick an end seat. Okay? Always pick an end. Ed, tell me why you're shaking your head.
Oh, I was agreeing with you.
Why?
Because it's close proximity. You know, you'll be able to see.
Okay. What else? You're right on.
I think you would have a better view
Okay.
coming in.
Okay.
You wouldn't have to climb over people.
That's it exactly. If you're sitting in the middle, you don't have to climb over people to get out. Okay. So you need to be on the end seat to get out. If it's an emergency, you need to get out right away. So either that end or that end. Sir.
Would it be better to be on the ends versus sitting here? Because we can see people coming in. If we're sitting right here, you have to turn around and.
Right.
I'm just asking.
You're right on. You're right on. If I were going to pick a seat here, I would pick that corner back there and that corner back there, okay? Or up against the wall up there. And the reason why is because, and I think we practiced this last time, Ed, is if somebody walks in the door, okay, and if you're sitting here, you're not going to see them until they're here, okay? So you want to make sure that you have an eye of them coming in right away, okay? I've told this to our team, and I'll tell you this. Homeless people, and it's interesting, being a pastor of 26 years, and I retired from that, but I'll tell you something about that. Churches small churches, and our church was about this size, is we're always trying to get people to join the church. You always want people to come and stay, right? That's the purpose of a church. The problem is that it's a problem in itself, is that we invite people in, but we don't know anything about those people, okay? If you want to invite people in, then have free food, have a carnival, have all kinds of stuff like that, which churches do, okay? The problem is when people come in, you don't know anything about people. So we have homeless because we're right out off of 3rd Avenue. We have a university on one side and then university housing all around the church. We have a lot of homeless people that come into the church, okay? Now, this is the way our people have been trained. When homeless people come in, especially in the winter here, okay? In California, we never had to worry about cold, okay? Now here you got to worry about the cold, okay? So people get cold, they come in. Sometimes they just want to use the restroom. Now, the way our church is set up, when you come in those doors, you come straight down an area. There's coffee on the right here, and then straight ahead you have the men's restroom, and to the left the ladies' restroom, and then the entrance to the nursery, okay? So homeless people many times will come in, they'll get coffee, and they'll look around, and they look for the restroom. So they'll walk straight back, or they'll ask where the restroom is. We allow anybody to come in and use the restroom, but we do not allow homeless people or anybody that's strange that we don't recognize to go into the restrooms by themselves, because our children also use the restroom, the older ones. So we always send a security person back there with them, okay? Just to stand by and just to make sure until that person leaves, okay? They're not allowed to walk around. If they said they're going to use the restroom, they use the restroom, grab a cup of coffee, and say, you know, you could stay for the service. They never stay for the service. They just walk right out. And that's fine. But we want to make sure that we always know that people are not just wandering around the church. If you take an offering, okay, we always have a security person walk with the person after the offering. Now, how many offerings do you have here? One? Okay. Because you know there are some churches that have like 3 offerings. They have a deacon's offering, a pastor's offering. I have been to churches before that I visited, and I'm going, man, if we took that many offerings, we could be rich. But if you just have one offering, you just want to make sure that somebody just kind of goes along with the offering. And again, you might have a visitor that day. You don't have to worry about your members. You may have a visitor that day, and that's what they're thinking about because they know every church takes an offering. So just be aware of those things, okay? But the point about where do I sit is important, okay? We're going to practice with these. So how many of you are armed today? Any of you armed? Okay. Okay, just one. Okay. So anytime you have a weapon, we're just going to talk about this. How many of you planned on being armed? One? Okay. Okay. So 3 of you plan on being armed. Okay, maybe more of you. I would strongly recommend, if you haven't done it already, that you go through one of these certification courses, okay, and that you qualify, okay? And I mean, you know, people go through certification courses and then they never go on the range again. It's really important at least once a month to go to a range and practice, okay? Because here's the thing. If you have a situation where you have an individual who is a threat, and he stands up in the middle of the church and he starts to move, now you have a moving target. And let me tell you about weapons, so just in general, okay? When you fire the weapon, you have no control of where the bullet goes after you pull the trigger. So if the person is moving and you pull the trigger, it will go right through maybe 3, well, with this, it may go through this and go all the way into the wall. So if somebody is sitting there and you hit them, it may stop when it hits that person, or it may hit 2, 3 people before it finally stops, okay? depending on what kind of bullet it is, you know, and every gun can carry different types of bullet, different types of wattage, depending on how it goes, okay? So if you're carrying a weapon, finger along the frame. This is how we always pull a weapon out. Finger along the frame. That's this part right here. The trigger is down here, so your finger is far away from the trigger, okay? It only takes a half a second to move your finger if you need to, but you always, okay? So strange, for the many years, I've always been trained to keep a weapon down. We walk into a building, we keep and we pull up. Okay, now I went through SWAT training last year at the seminary, and now they're teaching you keep your weapon up. And I said to one of the guys, I haven't seen that since I saw Hollywood movies, you know, where they do this. But I guess that's the way they're doing now. If somebody walks in front of you, you pull your gun up this way. So training always overcomes survival. When something happens, you're going to go back. So I may start out like this, and something happens, I'm going to immediately go down to the way I was trained, okay? So you carry your weapon down or up, depending on what's safe. And the reason why is if there's somebody in front of you, you want to make sure you have that weapon, okay, down in a position because you don't want to shoot the person in front of you, okay? They're saying that they don't like it down because if you trip and fall, well, my thought, if I trip and fall, I'm going to hit this way. It seems like if I hit and fell down, I'd go this way, but that's the way they're training now. So Ed, why don't you come up here and help me? Okay. There you go, Ed. Don't shoot anybody, Ed. Okay. It's on safety, okay. So if Ed and I are moving, okay, let's say the lights are out, or let's say it's a dark day or whatever, and so the threat is back here, then Ed and I are going to move, okay, towards that corner because we're going to go through that door. Now, do you see the problem if I've got somebody in front of me? It's like, how do I move if he's in front of me? So this is why they're saying you keep your gun up this way as you move with the person so that this way is too much of a chance of shooting somebody in front of you. So I wanted to explain why they're saying do it this way. So if we're moving, and I just simply, without talking, I can just push Ed along, okay, and stop him by just touching him, okay? So, thanks, Ed. So it's just really important to understand the safety of a weapon, okay? One thing is to go on a range and shoot. Another thing is always, you know, having in your mind you may have to shoot somebody, okay? But if you have somebody trying to force their way into the nursery, okay, then you need to respond, you know, and you need to just make sure that you understand that they may have a weapon, okay? Now remember this, if somebody has a knife can do just as much harm as a gun. And if somebody has a knife, and homeless people like to carry knives, so just remember. What I've learned in LA is that homeless people can be very dangerous. Why? Because they're always having to defend what they have, okay? Somebody's always trying to take it away from them. So you just need to be careful if a homeless person comes to church, okay? What you can do is basically a security person meets them and says, let me show you where you can sit, and sit them down in a place where you can be next to them. Do not sit somebody down, like a homeless person, down, and then just walk away and start talking with your friends and forget they're there, okay? What we do is, if we see somebody that looks like they may be suspicious in nature or what they're doing, then we will then have a safety person sit close to them or come in and sit behind them so you have control, okay? There was a shooting back, I don't know if you remember this, it's probably been about 6 years where a guy went into a church, they have video of it, in Texas, and he ended up shooting 2 of the deacons. He killed 2 of them, And one of the deacons happened to be a marksman at a range, and he was the one that shot him and killed the suspect. When you read the story about this homeless guy that shot and killed the two deacons, he had been in their church many times. That day when he came, it was a hot day. He was wearing very heavy clothing over. He had a hood on. He came in. They saw him coming on the cameras from the parking lot, and the narrative says that they saw him coming. They were aware he was coming, but he had been there before, and they just kind of let their guard down. And when you look at the video, they have the video, you could see it on YouTube. I don't know if it's still there now. It may have been taken because of legal. But he is very close to the two deacons. And one of them tries to get to his gun, and it gets stuck. It gets stuck in his holster. He shoots him first. And the second one is surprised by the shot, and before he can get his gun, he shoots him again. Now, he has a shotgun, so it doesn't take him long to just raise it and shoot him. So I'm just telling you, just be aware of homeless, okay? Now, I have two types of holsters that I wear. It just depends on how comfortable I want to be that day, okay? But I'm wearing one right now. This one is called Sneaky Pete, okay? Sneaky Pete, and it basically, I put the apple there. Somebody asked me one day about the apple. I said, that's a bad apple, okay? But this one is just basically has a flap, and it has a magnet, okay? And when I put my hand in here, I am automatically on my gun. Do you see? And it slides back down. It locks in place, and this is called a Sneaky Pete. We have other holsters. If you are going to carry a gun, okay, then I would say spend the money to get a holster that's going to keep the gun safe. As my wife knows, because I say this all the time, do not ever leave your gun in the car. Never. Okay? Oh, I'm just going for a few minutes. Don't. Okay? Today, there are a lot of car break-ins, as you know, in Kentucky, and the first thing they get is a gun. Yes, sir.
Suppose I'm going into a bank.
Okay.
Where you see a sign that says, where they have, no weapons.
Yes.
So, what I do? Take it off and leave it in the car, or do I go in the bank with it?
I would say for your safety, leave it in the car. That would be an exception, okay? There are places like federal buildings, state buildings, banks that say no gun. The mall, nah. You know what? If there's going to be a shooting, how many shootings have we seen in malls? Okay? And when the shooting starts, it's like, oh, man, I should have left it in the car. Yeah, it's a little late now, okay? But if you are certified to carry, as Kentucky certifies people to carry guns, civilians to carry guns, that's fine, okay? There are times, even though I have certification as a police officer to carry a gun, I don't carry it.
So if I'm certified, I can go into a bank with the gun?
Yes, but I would say no. I'm just saying common sense, no. Because if somebody happens to see that gun, first thing that comes to mind, they think of bank robbery, So, I mean, it can happen to a cop too. I mean, somebody sees it and all they panic, and then some other civilian who's carrying a gun sees your gun, and next thing you know, okay? One of the things that we have warned people who want to carry guns, because in the state of Kentucky, they can. We warned them is if something happens and you're not on the safety team, do not get involved. Because if you are running down the hallway with a gun in your hand, you are going to be a victim. Because we have people that come on the safety team that don't know all the members in the church. And you're running down towards the nursery, you got a gun in your hand because you're thinking, my kid's in the nursery, I'm gonna save them. You're gonna be a victim. Because as soon as we say stop, and this is just a common thing, okay? Somebody's going to the nursery, call out stop to me.
Stop!
What? And guess what? Somebody swings a gun your way. It's just common nature that they turn with the gun. and they're going to end up getting shot. So this is the concern I have in Indiana where the elders have said no, and I'm going to try to appeal to them if I go down there and talk to them and say, do you realize the liability in not training somebody? And most websites for your insurance, if you look up the website, and I don't know who your insurance is, Brother Mutual. Do you know what your insurance company is?
That's it.
That's it, Brother Mutual? They encourage, if you look at the website, they encourage safety teams, okay? And as we talked about last time, and I'm just going to say it again, whoever takes care of the insurance, they add a rider on. It's just an added rider to protect the safety team and the church. So if somebody sues you, because they can sue you for anything nowadays, you can escort them out, and they'll try to sue you for assault. So let me ask you this. Can your church pay $1 million lawsuit and still survive? Ed's thinking, well, I give $1 million a year. They could use it for that. And the answer is probably no. Okay, but your insurance will put a rider on, and that may cost anywhere from $30 to $40. It's not very much, but it's a rider because they don't expect that's going to happen. But if it happens, you need to have something that protects the people on the safety team and also protects the church, okay, in case they want to sue the church or sue you. And so I explained that to the people on our safety team, that there is a rider on the church for $2 million to protect the safety team in case something happens.
And that's what it's called.
A rider, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and if you look up just the site, it talks about safety teams, it will talk about them in there in detail. So, okay, good to have. So, any other questions about weapons? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. If you have a permit to carry
Uh-huh.
and you get pulled over for a traffic violation, are you supposed to let the officer know that you have a weapon in your vehicle?
Well, you can. You can tell them you have certification for carrying a weapon. Some people will have it on them, and it's always good to tell the officer, I have a weapon on my person. If you have it in your purse, to just say, I have a weapon in my purse, okay? Just so they know. Better that you ask or you tell them than you open up to get your registration, whether it's in the center, and they look and see the gun, okay? It's kind of different here in Kentucky. I work with a partner sometimes. We walked up on a guy that had a shotgun that was, he's at the seminary, he's at the college, doesn't go there, older guy. He's got a shotgun lying across, and I came up as a partner, so I came up and I'm looking down in the car. He's talking to him, and I look and I said, partner, he has a gun. So I came back and I pulled my gun, as we do in California, and I'm pointing it towards him, and my partner is still talking to him like it's nothing. And I'm just like, this is a weird place. Later he tells me, oh, anybody can carry a gun in Kentucky. And I go, this is bizarre. Because in California you cannot carry a gun, you're not. But that's the concern. Now later we had a discussion with this, well, I did, with this individual. First of all, do you realize that we have colleges and universities where people come on campus with guns for one purpose, and that's and you're sitting outside of a dorm? You know what his excuse? His excuse was he was using the free Wi-Fi, that he was in the parking lot, so he was picking up the free Wi-Fi. That's why he was there. And I said, first of all, it's not free to you. And secondly, you don't belong here. And to bring a gun on campus is absolutely crazy. Well, I told him, I said, if you reach for that gun, we wouldn't be talking today. So you just have to understand about, guns. It's one of those things that we live with nowadays. And I don't have to tell you this, it's getting worse, Yeah. Yes.
I know in the state of Kentucky, anyone can carry
Yes.
a gun, anyone.
Yes.
Except for felons.
Yes, that is correct.
Now,
Somebody needs to tell felons that, though.
And I can conceal it.
Yes.
Without having certification. Or can I? I mean, I be in the store sometimes and see people with Gatling guns almost.
Yeah.
On the side.
Yeah.
But you can see them. But now, to carry it concealed.
You need a permit, yes. Okay. Now, people that carry guns so that you can see them, guess what? If I'm a bad guy and I see a gun, that's the first person I'm taking out. In the military, that's what they teach you. The guy that has the biggest gun, and in the police department, that's how they teach you. You got two people carrying a gun. One has a shotgun. The other one has a handgun. The shotgun's going to go down first. Do you see? So that's how criminals think. I mean, if I'm going to rob this place and I see somebody with a gun, it's just, yeah, it's crazy. Our team has been established for 6 years now, and I'm proud of the fact that I've asked people, have you ever seen any of my team members? Have you ever seen their gun? Oh, no. I didn't even know they were carrying. That's what you want, okay? Nobody in the church needs to know if you are carrying a weapon, okay? Those of you ladies who are going to carry a gun, the suspect will never suspect a woman is carrying a gun, okay? Only because they're used to guys carrying guns, okay? So that's where the element of surprise is on your side, okay? But at any rate, let's talk about guns, and let's talk about how we react with guns, okay? So where you're sitting, okay, I want you to get up and tell me where you normally sit, okay, on Sunday. Because usually we all sit in the... Go where you usually sit. Because we're all creatures of habit. We always pick the same seats on Sunday. And if somebody sits in your seat, you're going to let them know, that's my seat. So on Sunday, you're there? Okay. Perfect place to see who's coming through. Okay? Good place to sit, okay? Good place to sit. Good place to sit. Sitting in this. Okay. So, okay. Okay. Now, you're back there, okay, or here. By the time the suspect comes in, it's too late because he's already passed your location. You see what I'm saying? So you need to keep that in mind, okay? Now, here's the thing. If you are going to approach somebody, then you have to recognize where you sit. And what would have to happen here is you may have to change where you're sitting, okay, so that you have the most amount of effect. So what we do is we have a briefing in the morning, and that's right before morning service. We find out who's working, and then we assign seating. Now, we have two types of officers. I call them officers just for, they're not officers. I'm the only officer. But where they're going to work, okay? So they're either going to be inside the sanctuary or they're going to be rovers. Now, a rover, our people actually will be outside, okay? We want them outside to see a danger before it comes inside. That's what the rovers do. The problem that you have to think about if you're assigned a rover is you're going to miss the service that day, okay? But that's why you're on the safety team, okay? But I make sure that, hey, if you weren't in church last week, you need to be in church this week. So we rotate. Make sure that they rotate the rovers. So the rovers are outside. If we have two rovers, one rover will stay there, and one rover will check the parking lot. Okay? Just walk around, check the parking lot, and come back in. My assumption is the gate is kept open all day. So anybody can come in the alley, drive in there, go through your cars, and then drive back out, okay? So it's good to have rovers. So one rover just checks the parking lot, comes back in, maybe after 15, how long is the service? Okay. 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 So they can, whoever's working back there can, one takes the first hour, one takes the second hour, but at one time you swing around it and you check the parking lot. Okay? So that's what your rovers do. So let's say you have 4 people working on that particular Sunday, 2 people here, 2 people in here. Okay? And that's what the rovers do. So on our board, we have this erasable board. It says, on the board, it says R or S. R is rover, next to their name. S is in the sanctuary. And then I'll have guys that'll say, hey, I worked it last week. Can I be inside? Sure. So we just switch names around, okay? So it's always fair. Yes.
So you recommend the rovers stay out for the entire service?
Yes.
So what do they do? I guess just walk around? Do they
Yes.
sit, or they just?
Here's that power. There you go, ma'am. There you go. And then then we'll switch around people once we do this, okay? Okay. So what I want you to see is if the threat comes through this door, because Okay, Beverly, what do you have to do so that I don't shoot somebody else, or he doesn't shoot me?
Shoot me
Yeah, how you gonna shoot me?
in the head.
Okay, well, that's a good thought, Beverly, but this is what I
Okay.
need you to do. Change places with me here,
Okay.
okay?
A
Now,
leg.
you're the attacker, Beverly,
Okay.
okay? Now, what this means, and this is sacrifice, is you have to close the gap. In other words, you may not shoot from here, but if this is the attacker, I have to move and close the gap so that I'm just shooting the attacker. You see, shooting from here, okay? What if the guys are behind her or whoever is working back there? You see what I'm saying? Somebody walking to church came in late. That's their fault for coming to church late. But if they come in late, they're coming in through that door. So you have to close that gap. You'll see it in the military. If you see military movies, you will see the military closing the gap. You'll see officers closing the gap. You'll see SWAT really tight together closing the gap. The reason they're closing the gap is you just want to get the suspect and not anybody else. You see? Yes. Thank you, Becky.
I understand about closing the gap. They got that gun in front of them. They see me come, they gonna start shooting.
Yes.
And so I'm gonna start shooting.
Yeah.
as
Well, see,
I'm shooting as I'm walking forward.
yes. But see, you've got a problem there where you're sitting.
Oh yeah, I know riffing, but I'm talking about that scenario you just played out.
Yes.
I mean,
But
if
where
we-
Beverly's sitting, she can close the gap.
Yeah, but if you're coming, if I look up and I see you got a gun,
Uh-huh.
and I'm sitting where Beverly's at, and I start walking, I'm shooting and walking.
Oh,
at the same-
absolutely.
All right, then we're in one corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
But as long as you remember, this is a last resort. This is somebody who has a gun and
Right,
is walking and maybe has already shot somebody out here,
right,
and they're walking with a gun. In your mind, you have to know you've got to neutralize this person or he's going to kill more people.
right.
So your mindset has to be to kind of close the gap and to make sure this person stops. Okay? So here we go. To the victim. I mean to the people. Okay. Yes, sir.
And a point, you made a very good point that we don't have much of a gap
Yes.
between our front door, and then the sanctuary door. So then the rover is going to be important
Yes.
outside, and it's I would be alerted if I see somebody, it's 80 degrees outside, and you got on a hoodie, a sweat, you're all bundled up, so those are some things to be vigilant when I look out.
Yes.
Oh, I got time to go.
You do too.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just tell you what the law says, just so we know, okay? There is a crime against person and a crime against property, okay? Crime against person, crime against property. You cannot shoot somebody or assault somebody who is stealing property, okay? That, you go to prison for that. I'll go to prison for that. You cannot shoot somebody. Now, a crime against person is somebody is committing a violent act against another person. Then you can see where it can be a shootable event. You see the difference? So let me give you an example. Somebody is in your car. You come up on them, you're carrying your gun. You come up on them and they're going through your car. They're, in the center console and they're taking stuff out. You cannot shoot that person. It's a property. It's a property crime.
Unless they start shooting.
Right.
Yes, and it becomes a crime against person.
Right.
Okay.
Because that's assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to commit bodily injury. So the way the law looks at it, you just have to remember, that's why I think it's important to get certification, because they cover all of the law of when you can shoot and when you cannot shoot, okay? And even nowadays, if you shoot somebody, it's just, you're at the mercy of a jury, okay? And remember this, they can try you twice. And I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just telling you reality.
they can try you in a courtroom and find you not guilty. So you're not going to prison. It's the good news. Then the family brings a civil lawsuit against you. Now they're going to sue you for everything you have. And they can find you guilty in a civil court and take away everything you have. So it's always something to think about. And that's why I say your last resort. Okay. Now the guy that shot in Texas, shot the attacker who had already killed 2 of the deacons there. They praised him as a hero, and he was, because the guy probably would have killed a lot more people in the church. Okay? But you know what? You can either be a hero or a villain. It depends on how the jury looks at it. See what I'm saying? So when you decide to shoot that weapon, in your mind, you've got to be able to recognize, if I don't take some kind of action, this person is going to kill people or maim people or hurt people if I don't do something. Okay?
Okay, let me
Yes.
ask a question. So, if now I'm just gonna be out, try to pay. If I come up on someone in my car
Okay?
and I pull the gun to hold them to the police car, and if they come at me violent, then do I have the right to protect myself?
Yes and no. Okay? Because here's the thing. The way the law looks at it, if somebody has a gun and you have a gun, you have a right to protect yourself. If somebody says, I'm going to beat you to death, they don't have the ability to do that. Okay? And so, I mean, they've had people that have been attacked and they're getting beat up and they pull their gun and they shoot them. And some juries have said, you used bodily force to kill him. You shouldn't have. Some juries have said, no, you were in the rightful mind because you thought you were going to die. So that's why I'm sharing with you. It just depends on the jury. And what you're dealing with juries is that they are looking at the picture, but they don't know the law. They're just, it's the judge that is supposed to know the law. They're supposed to know the facts. And that's what they're looking at, facts. So it's just,
How they feel.
so here's the question, okay? I'll ask you. Okay, the jury's gonna ask you. So when the guy was in your car and you pulled the gun, okay, could you have just run away and called the police?
Yes,
So why did you shoot him?
because he came toward me and I felt my life was in danger.
But you could have run away. You see what I'm saying? If you have a way of escaping, that's what they expect you to do before you take somebody's life.
Let them take everything. So that's basically, if I wake up one night and the man's going at my house with my TV, if I shoot him, I'm wrong.
Yes.
Not unless when I shoot him and then I turn his body the other way and put something in his hand.
Okay. let me answer that question. Okay. Or let me answer that. Okay.
So the person's in your house.
House, that's what I was
Okay.
gonna ask.
Person's in the house. Okay. But then the question is, could you have run away? Could you have gotten out? That's why I talked about the exits. Remember, for the kids. Okay. So here's the thing about when I taught criminal justice in California at a college, a local college. One of the things we studied was something called lividity. Okay? Lividity. Have you ever heard of lividity? Okay. So the minute that somebody is shot and the heart stops, the blood coagulates. Okay? The blood coagulates. So the minute you're shot, that's the way it's going to be. So let's see if I can get a volunteer back here looking at his. Can I get you for a volunteer? I'm going to have you lay down.
Okay.
Okay.
So lay like
Lay down here. Yeah. Sure. Right. Okay.
Get out.
Okay. Okay. So he's laying down. I just shot him. Okay. I go, oh, the way he's sitting, I better turn him before the cops come. So I take him, I roll him over, okay, Oh, that looks a lot better. Now, okay, so here's the problem. If I can explain, I used to explain this to students that way. I take a jar of milk, okay, and it's sitting this way, and then I turn the milk on the side. There is a line where the milk was at one time. You got me? That's how the body is. When it dies, there is a line that the coroner can tell. It's a bruising of the body of when the body died, when it was shot. When you turn the body, you'll get a second line showing where the body was at the time of death. Same thing with the hands. You know, somebody has their hands up and you shoot them, and the lividity is going to set, and it's going to set here and here and on the front, and then you turn them over and put a gun in their hand, the lividity is going to show that.
Yeah.
And that's what the coroner is going to find out. Now they're going to try you for murder because they figure this was a murder. This wasn't a self-defense thing. You see what I'm saying? That's just modern science the way it is now. They can tell all that stuff. And you can get up now. Don't fall asleep. Thank you. So that's, you know, people used to say, oh, if somebody's in your house, you shoot them and then just pull them inside the house. You know, if they were outside the house, you pull them inside the house. Well, that's an old wives' tale because you pull them in the house, lividity is already set in. They know where the person was because they can tell that the blood has already settled. And now you broke that, and now the blood has settled a second time. If you ever watch any movies, they'll go, the person didn't die here. They died somewhere else. That's how they can tell. Okay. So, sorry. Okay.
But the question was, as she said, if they've already broke the door down and they're in your house, do you have the right to protect yourself?
Yes.
If they're in the house?
If the threat is coming toward you,
Okay.
okay? And what would have to happen is you'd have to say, you could say, I have a gun, I'm gonna shoot you if you come any closer,
Right.
okay? So you've warned them, and they come closer and then, boom, okay? But what the juries look at is, so the guy decides, he hears you say he's got a gun, and he starts running to the exit, you shoot him in the back. You got a problem. See what I'm saying? Because he's fleeing, he's on his way out, and you shot him for property, you know? So I would ask you, how much is a TV worth to you?
Not worth it.
You see?
Not worth it.
Yeah, see? And those big flat screen TVs, that when they came out, they were thousands of dollars. Now at Costco, they're $2.99. So you gotta ask yourself, how much is it? How much is it when you shoot them and you gotta spend the money to pay for a lawyer? You know that? And then anxiety that they might find guilty and take away everything for you. So that's why I tell you this, is that you need to remember, you know, life and death situations and the worth of the body. Yes,
Okay, so they're breaking in your house.
Yes.
And they know that you're there. I feel like that is a defense because then if they're broken in your house, they're not coming in your house just to, you know, they're coming in your house. They're not coming in your house to talk to you. They broke in your house.
Yes.
I mean, they came from outside and broke in. You didn't let them in. They came into your house. That's a threat.
right. But
And it's in the middle of the night.
yes, now see, you changed it now. Because what did she add? It's the middle of the night. You see, circumstances are changing. If it's daytime, it's a different thing. If it's nighttime, you know, the circumstance, they're gonna look, I say they, the judge or the jury, or your attorney, looking at the circumstances involving, and that's where the law changes, you see. There was a time that they used to say, if somebody enters your house and you shoot him, hey, okay? Of course, this is Kentucky, so, you know, things are different in Kentucky. California, they go, no, you didn't have a right to do that. In Kentucky, you know, yeah, you had the right to shoot them, they were in your house. But things are changing, okay? Laws are changing. Okay, so who is the gun? We've got one there, one here, okay? We've got one here, okay. So, I'm gonna utilize you, sir. Can you throw that gun to me over here? Okay. So you're gonna be the attacker. Okay, so you're gonna come in this back door.
She was after your mom.
I plead the fifth.
Okay, so you're gonna come in this way, okay? Let's say that you are upset with the pastor. He preached something that you did not like.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So what I want you to do is the orange pastor anniversary. I want you to just walk very slowly because that's your target. And in some situations, the pastor has been the target, not the congregation, okay? It was somebody that was excommunicated. They were told to leave the church, never come back again. Now they're upset with the pastor, and so your target is the pastor, okay? I'm telling you up front, he's the guy. I'm telling you, he's the guy. So let's see how you react. I'll say 1, 2, 3. On 3, I'm going to have you come forward to the pastor. And remember, I've already given you knowledge who the bad guy is, okay? So I need you to react to it. Nope, not yet. On 3. They're already cocked their gun and everything. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
I gotta close the gap.
Okay, stop. Okay, put your gun out again, because you're gonna, okay? Put your gun up. Okay, turn around, look at your buddy.
Oh.
Never mind.
You see? So the best places that you think you're sitting, you just have to keep in mind, what if the target is up here? Okay, where do I need to move? So you stop. What is your name? Netra, can you step over here? Okay, which means you need to step out of his way if you know he's armed. You see what I'm saying? Now, she's not in your way, okay? But you're going to have to, because you're going to have people here, you're going to have to move all the way down here and close the gap. So come on down here, and you can continue, okay? Just as long. There you go. And that's your suspect. And you're still closing the gap, okay? But you're keeping it there, okay? Now, she closed the gap on you. But let me tell you this. As soon as you close the gap, who's your target now? Is it the pastor?
Oh, no.
Who's the target now? Yeah. So, and she came closest to you first. So you become the target. And that's what I tell the safety team. The minute you approach the suspect, you become the target. And you need to understand, I mean, that's what it says in the Bible about giving your life up for somebody else. It's just, it is what it is. Yep, it is what it is.
See, I was thinking already, those two are too close together, so
Okay.
they're probably not gonna be able to.
That's what I want you to do. In this exercise, Ed, is for us to see, what am I gonna do if this ever happens? You know, they have police training that says, think about what you're gonna do if something happens. Don't wait till it happens. Because your mind freezes up. But if you're thinking, what do I do if this happens? You are already mindset, if something happens, this is what I'm gonna do. Now, you got your guns on him, okay? Drop your gun, you're gonna drop your gun. Okay, now what are you gonna do?
Shoot him.
Okay.
You know the digital one is, right?
Okay, so what are we gonna do?
Well, then I would approach it with my gun.
Okay, good. And what are you guys gonna do? You're gonna come in closer.
Yeah. So we
Okay,
can
not too
surround
close
him.
though, because she's in your way. Okay,
Yes.
now, this is what you're gonna do, okay? As you walk up here, okay, you got your gun on him, okay?
Just set out the way.
Yeah, you don't want him in. Come forward. Get down on your knees. Okay, lay out in front of me. Okay, now, somebody call the police, 911. Okay, police
Already
get
called.
here, okay? Now, remember, with what the police know, the first thing the two of you are gonna do is you're gonna get rid of your guns. You're gonna set them down before the police get here. You hear the sirens coming? Put your guns down, okay? Put them down. Over there, not close to him, okay? You're gonna step back,
Okay.
okay? Now remember,
Police are coming. Now, when the police get there, you're gonna set your gun down, okay? Okay? And you're gonna say, that's the guy. Okay?
Cause usually police gonna come in with their guns.
Exactly.
They're gonna
You-
think we're the
They
bad
don't
guy.
know who the suspect is.
Right.
All they've been told is there was a guy in the church. You can get up. I don't wanna hold you down. Thank you. Thank you. So, what I want you to see, and that's what I tell our safety team, listen, you guys have guns in your hands, the police show up to take down the guy that you guys just stopped, get rid of that gun right away. Policemen are told that are plain clothes, like I would be on Sunday. I would be dressed plain clothes. Get rid of that gun as soon as possible, okay? Put it off to the side, because you don't want to get shot as a suspect, because when they come in, they're looking real quick and they
Right.
don't know who the suspect is, okay? So that's an important after the fact, should something like that happen. Okay, let's take our seats again.
Oh, and I found out you have.
Good job, because you almost on a perch there.
I got a bird.
Okay,
Look, watch it, Dad.
so it's almost 11 o'clock, and I'm just gonna go to 11, because I know we talked about a quarter to 11, and I'm gonna go about 15 minutes. But I wanna be able to answer any of your questions you have, anything that you might have. Yes, sir.
Is Kentucky a constitutional state where you can still, even though, establishments, businesses have no weapon sign, you still go in there? with-
Yes, yes, you can, okay?
As long as you're certified. Gun.
Yes, a concealed weapon, okay? Because remember, a lot of the malls have security, but if you look at the security that they have, they're not armed, okay? So, they're worthless if you actually have a shooter there. They're gonna run just like you are, okay? Now, let me tell you, if you are carrying a gun, remember this, always carry additional ammo, okay? Always carry additional ammo. So if you carry a gun, you should carry additional ammo with you at all times, okay? Because you never know if you're gonna hit whatever you're shooting at. So, all right, any questions? Oh, my wife has a question.
Oh. What about the congregation? Because when they see a gun and they see shooting, they start going wild.
Okay, well, I think that's gonna be a real difficult thing to deal with. You know, we have a congregation, when they stand up to sing, I always think in my mind, what would I do if the attacker came out right now? I mean, there's no way I could do anything, because if he starts shooting, I can't shoot because there's people in the way. So the thought is, we're gonna lose people during that time, okay? But what my thought is while he's shooting, I have to close the gap, okay? My wife knows where we sit all the time. I'm gonna come straight down and across this way, okay? Because that's where just like here, pulpit is here. I'm gonna come straight down here and close the gap this way. Because there's nobody here, okay? Unfortunately, for us, is our seating goes like this, okay? So even though I close the gap, there's people right here. So it's gonna be one of those things where, like I showed you, I'm probably gonna get shot a couple of times. I might not even make it to the suspect, but I gotta close the gap, okay? And while I'm closing the gap, I'm shooting, okay? So, it's
Should
one of
they
those.
tell everybody to get down?
Yes,
Or
yeah, you can yell out, hit the floor, or get behind the seats, or get down. There's always gonna be people going, what? I don't know that hymn. Get down, okay? So, you just have to do whatever you can, and my wife has a good point about it, they've gotta get down. But I always think about this, you know, they have people that have children that, you know, they don't wanna take to the nursery, they want the kids sitting right next to them. And we have kids many times sitting in front of us, and I always think, what's gonna happen if there's ever a shooting? Plus, think about this, our nursery, like yours, is away. Parents are gonna try to get up and go to the nursery, okay?
Now,
That's true.
So we were supposed to make a video a couple of years ago, and then COVID hit. And in the video, it was going to say, if the safety team tells you to hit the ground, you need to hit the ground. And do not go to the nursery. Because remember the rovers I talked about?
Yes.
The rovers in our manual says you are to go immediately to the nursery and stand in front of the nursery. Okay, just like cherubim with a flaming sword. They're standing right there, and you are not to leave the nursery. And they're going to protect, those kids will be much more safe than the people in the sanctuary. Because the minute the sanctuary doors open and people start running out, guess what? The suspect's just going to mow them down. So you guys think about that. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you something then. The way our church is set up, I don't know if this is, like at a certain point in time, we lock our doors,
Uh-huh.
when the service starts. Then we have two ushers, before the service starts to direct people to their, seats. And so, and then the only way after that, people can come in, they have to knock, so we can let them in. And that kind of minimizes
It's perfect.
the people just walking in.
Yes. We have the same thing. But we lock the doors. We have automatic lockdown doors because they're metal doors. But we lock them down at 20 minutes after the hour when service starts, because that's when we do the collection. And we can hear them, we can hear the doors click, okay? We have a back door that we have to check that goes to the alley because the doors don't always close all the way. And one of the safety guys has to pull it tight to make sure that it locks. But we have a lockdown as well.
Let me ask you something, Beverly, that when y'all have kids church, those doors, they lock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it locks it back,
Okay.
back here. We lock
So a lockdown of a church is perfect, okay? It's the best security you have is to have an open door. Remember when churches just left the doors open and anybody could walk in? We're all having to look at that and saying, if people are late, they're late. I mean, we have glass doors, so we have somebody standing, one of us, I'm usually standing or sitting on a stool, and the doors that go into the sanctuary are there. I can see the front doors that are glass, and if somebody knocks on the door, I can see them, and I can go and open the door for them, unlock it, and let them in. Okay?
Now, what are your I'm sorry, somebody has a question before.
Right before you, then I'll.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, would you recommend, of course, obviously I can wear my glass, but would you recommend a safety person sitting in the lobby before, in case, people come in late, so we can kind of,
That's always a good idea to have somebody in the lobby there if you can. Okay? You have to make the decision because that person has to recognize they're going to miss the service. Okay? So that's something. You had a question back here?
Yeah, I was just looking at the windows there, and you've got, if someone just wanted to shoot right through the windows and not even have to come in, you could do that too as well. That's where the importance of the rover is, right? When
Yeah.
they are roving to make
Right.
sure.
Right. Yeah. We can only do what we can do. People that go off and decide they plan these things.
Yeah.
If you notice this, they plan them. They have already decided which door they're gonna come in, what kind of gun they have, how many people they're gonna assault. They've already got it planned. Did you have a question, sir? Was there a question? No? You had a question, okay.
So it's kind of a lot of things going on in my mind. So Edward is usually our rover.
Okay.
Does an excellent job. He's always walking outside, looking around, making sure. We use the windows to see people coming. That's how we saw your lovely wife.
Okay. Good job.
And that's helpful. So then the ushers who sit back here, they're watching those windows. We never watch these windows.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another subject. So with a church our size, and if we don't, not everyone wants to carry.
Right.
And so the safety team is not necessarily security, kind of the ones that are carrying.
Right.
Should we have a certain number that should carry? And then how do we, I can understand training everybody in safety and in medical, that's awesome. But when you're kind of short on, because there's only one Edward.
Right.
You know, we really need another rover, but when you only have so many ushers and then some of your ushers are women, what would your recommendation
Well,
be for a church?
you've got to do what you have until you start to get people that are maybe interested in being,
And the rover should be a carrier, is that right?
yes.
Okay.
Because you don't want to put him in a position of going back, checking cars, and all of a sudden somebody's inside the car, and maybe they have a gun. See? So, I mean, I started mentioning this earlier, we were talking about guns. We have students that come from all over the United States that go to the seminary and go to Boise. And it says right in the handbook, no guns are allowed on campus. And then when they get broken into and they're listing what property was taken, a gun. It's like, a gun. Now you just gave some guy a gun, okay? So, it's crazy, but it happens more often than it should. So, people have guns, and that's why I say don't leave guns in a car. But, people carry guns, and they're breaking into cars, and they've got guns with them. So, that's why I'm saying you don't want to put him in a position where he's coming upon somebody and, they might have a gun. So, okay. Any other questions? Okay. Anything else you need me to talk about? Ed?
I was going to ask you, say I was living with my brother for something that was interesting, over here in Kentucky, anyone that's 21 years older that is, let's say, eligible to carry a weapon and carry it concealed, even without, CCW.
That is true. Okay.
So,
On our team, even though I've had people tell me that, I tell them you can't be on our team armed if you don't go through that course.
right.
Because the course talks about the law and what you can do and what you can't do. It also teaches you gun safety, and that's really important, okay? Gun safety. Plus they put you on a range, and sometimes, people will bring a gun to get trained, and where did this gun come from? It looks old. Oh, my great-grandfather passed it down to my grandfather, who passed it down to my father, who passed it down to me. And the gun's all rusty and everything, and they've never cleaned it or anything. So it's important to go through that just for safety. And I think gun safety is really important. Never pointing a gun at anybody, always making sure that, like for me, it's pointing down. That the finger is alongside. It's just, for me, it's a habit that it's alongside the frame, okay? And like I said, it only takes just a second to go from here to here. But you don't want to automatically, just be on the trigger and then you bump something, you hit something, and it goes off. So you want gun safety. How to load the weapon, how to unload the weapon is all taught in those courses. And I think it's really important. So I've had people that have wanted to join the team. I'll say, sure, except you're going to have to go through that. And they'll go, well, it's not required. Well, it's required to be on the safety team. So,
I have one last question.
Okay.
As far as the medical part,
okay,
so I'm a nurse practitioner,
Okay.
as a registered nurse.
okay.
Do you necessarily have to be, it almost sounds like the person who would be the medical part would just need to be certified in CPR. Is that correct, or?
No. See, if that's your profession, that is perfect, because we have nurses. We've got so many nurses, we always have somebody every Sunday morning and every Sunday evening, and it's always somebody different. It can be a technician, it can be a nurse practitioner, whomever. A lot of times they're called to nurse. We got one call one time that a child was turning blue in the nursery. So first thing I'm thinking, not breathing. Now I'm hearing this, we have radios, and they have a radio, and we have earplugs on, so I'm hearing this going, oh my gosh. So I got on the radio and asked one of the safety guys, go over with the nurse and see what's going on. So he comes back and he's kind of smiling. I go, what's that all about? He goes, the little boy is spoiled and didn't want to do something, so he held his breath until he turned blue. And I said, that sounds like a good spanking would take care of that. But you can't say that anymore. So anyway, yeah. But I mean, yeah, but that's an example. We get those kind of calls, but it could be something something else, especially since you have a nursery.
But that nurse was already assigned because she's on the team.
Yes.
For that day.
Yes, and we have the assigned people over here for the Rovers and the sanctuary, and then on this side, we have the nurse's name, her phone number, and we call them Mary One. Mary One stands for medical, so Mary One. And it'll have the person's name. They have a seat that is assigned to them. All of it, tell you how we ended up getting I told you we had these plastic seats people were sitting on. Well, you know, in the weddings they have reserved. So there was a wedding there and somebody just left them. So we took them, so they're ours. So it just drapes over here, it's a piece of cloth, drapes over here, and it says reserved. So the nurse usually sits, I sit like there and the nurse sits up in front, but there's a reserved seat. And then for the safety team, they have some that they can reserve. And the reason you want to reserve your seats is because what we looked at is you want the most advantage if you have to respond, okay? If you have to respond.
Did you have an AED?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. You have one here?
No.
Okay. Shame on you.
I know,
Yes.
you're right.
They're very inexpensive. We got ours, we didn't have them in our church for like, I was there, I looked around for the ADT and I said, where is it? And they said, we don't have one. I go, what? 500 members here and you don't have an ADT? Now we have more than one, but I actually, the first one, I installed it and it was from Amazon. They're not very expensive from Amazon, okay? And you wanna put it, of course, where the nurses know where it's at and you get to it. Now, I just went through that training again, and now the paddles are actually small enough for a baby, for a child. You know, you used to have two, one for a child, and now they've learned that you can use the same paddles for a child. Exactly, you use what you do. So, Amazon,
Yeah, put
okay,
that
on your list, yeah, real important. Yeah, yeah, and then, you know, it comes with the sign, a little plastic fold-up sign. And we had ours, and I was going, how come it hasn't you bought it, and it's sitting in the box, how come you haven't put it up yet? Oh, well, we have to drill the holes, and I go, I'll drill the holes. And I took it that Saturday and put it up, it's right near the bathrooms, it's right there so you can see it. So, really important to have the ADT. Yes.
Two questions.
Okay.
As far as placement for the security team, where would you, for some church this size, what seating would be ideal for?
Well, this one is covered here, that's a perfect seat, okay, up here. And then up here,
Sit back there.
yeah, yeah. So,
So this out.
that would be a good seat, except you can't see. Because sit there, go ahead and sit there right now, Ed. Okay,
I would say the ends, like
The
the person
Okay.
ends, yeah.
now look back towards
Like
the door.
End over here, that end,
You
like
see?
we're in.
Are you gonna sit there all day long or all morning? You see what, it's uncomfortable. So, where I sit is kind of like here, but the way our doors are, where my wife is sitting is kind of like where I sit. So as soon as they come through that door, I can see them. I can see them come through the door.
When you have someone in close proximity to pass and first lady?
Well, yeah, that's why he said up there.
Well, pass and first lady in.
Oh.
So it wouldn't be
I was
better
wrong.
for him to be sitting up behind the pastor first.
Cause I was
Okay,
previously
well-
sitting behind pastor and first lady.
Well, the trainer has usurped authority. We're gonna have to tell Pastor, we have been
Well,
instructed.
well,
that that's not your best seat, because you can't see everything.
What about that seat? Who sits there?
Normally,
Just the person who does a declaration.
But I mean, so
That's
him
ideal.
sitting behind the pastor and
Sure, this would be
You're
just
right
as
in there.
fine.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
this would be
Or
just as
maybe
fine.
just sitting right there in front of
Yeah.
that small podium.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I can still see that door really well.
That's true. Because
Okay.
even if you were on the stage with us, you still would kinda have to turn your head, but that one.
And
you'll be looking
every
at
time that door opens, you have to be looking at that door.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the most important things you said, you cannot be taking notes, you cannot be, yes, you can listen to the sermon, but you have to be, alert, and I think it's just as important when service begins until service, till people are gone.
Yeah.
And we be alert.
And you know what the top of our manual says? It says, we are the people that pray with our eyes open. Okay? Because you cannot be praying with your head down. If I'm an attacker, that's when I'm gonna hit. When everybody's head is down, that's when I'm gonna stand up, you never even see it coming. So, that's what we believe is, you've gotta be ready in case it happens. It may never happen. We know the end of the world's coming, but we never know when something's gonna happen in this day and age.
Right.
So we wanna protect ourselves.
Also, with other, we have just set up a video board, with a screen for security, so you can see out, back parking lot, front, both sides.
Yes.
Side doors. And then we have also radios. What other security, enhancements would you recommend?
Well,
We still have to do some.
I think down the line, Ed, it would be good for the people on your safety team to have a radio. Again, they have them at Amazon.
Yeah, we have radios.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Radios with earplugs, okay?
Well, see, I need to get some earplugs, because earplugs, they shoot me, get stuck in my ear.
Okay.
But anyway, I was thinking, is there some?
And get the ones with the big plugs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they have some.
Yes,
On Amazon, they actually wrap around the ear.
Yes.
You have to take the plug and stick it in there.
yes, some of the guys don't like it in their ear, so they got the ones that wrap around their ear and it comes in, yes. Just make sure that they fit
Right.
your radio.
Well, now, what brand would you recommend?
For now, with the church the size,
Yes.
we started out with Amazon, and now we actually have Motorola.
Motorola.
Yeah, and that was a member of the church who's on the safety team, he donated them. And those are pretty expensive. It was like, because you have to get the charger too. And because we have like 15 radios, I think the whole thing was like $7,000. Yeah, yeah, because you get the charger, yeah, so that was a
I
gift.
think our radios be ready.
Yeah, they should be, they should be. The only reason why we had to go to a different frequency is because we had people coming in on our frequency. And then one night we had some girls that were cussing, and once we asked them to get off the frequency, it got worse.
Have you tried the walkie-talkie down in the parking lot?
Yes.
Does it still work? Okay, so yeah, I think what we got.
So if you communicate to one another, because if something happens to you out in the parking lot, you want to make sure somebody in here is going to respond. Okay? Okay. Anything else? All right, it's 11:15.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your input. I just hope you stay safe and that you never ever have to respond as a safety team to some attacker. My prayer is that you never have to do that, but at least if you do, you have some insight on what you do to protect yourself and the church. So anyway, that's why the ministry is what it is. So I've been doing this for a while, and I was talking to my wife and to my son, and we're looking at probably incorporating this program so that I can reach more churches, and that'll by the end of the year. So anyway, thank you for your kind attention, and thank you for inviting me back.
Oh, you didn't
I do that.
I
Thank you,
know,
sweetheart.
but we wanted to do that.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
your wife knows you have it. So it can't be she money. 'Cause she already knows you got it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Ed knows if he needs to get a hold of me, or if you need any more questions or anything else, it's a pleasure coming back again. Thank you, brother. Thank
That
you.
was really
Hope I
good.
answered
That
your
was good.
questions.
That was good.
Okay.
Yeah.